Pretty girl with an ugly smirk, you convince yourself that it's one of my quirks again. Too high, if you can choose.
Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today we're going to be doing my monthly wrap up. And I think I might start doing these weekly instead, because this is a lot and these videos tend to get really long. So I'm just going to open my tracking spreadsheet so we can go down. I'm going to try and do it in order of star rating. But first off, I'm going to give you my stats. So in the month of June, in total, I read 19 books. I'm going to class Heliotrop as book 19 because I have just finished it. We're only at the beginning of July, like the second day in July. And most of it I did finish in June, so we're going to count that. So in total, it was 7,748 pages, which equates to around 258 pages a day. 78 hours of that, I'd say it might be more than that now, was audio. And I did 9 mixed media, 5 purely audio, 3 physical and 2 ebook, which is a bit different for me. I had 1 2.5 star, 3 3 stars, 2 3.5 stars, 1 4 star, 1 4.5 and 10 5. We're gonna go through what they are and what I rated them. I haven't counted my DNF in any of this, so first off we'll start with the DNFs, and that is Norse Mythology. I tried to start it, wasn't working, I wasn't interested, so it's that's gone. So that's out of the way. The next is 2.5, and unfortunately it's eldest. I can't, it was too long, it was training. I think I actually said on Goodreads I rounded it up to a 3, but it was too long for what went on. Still not getting the connection between Saphira and Aragon. I'm just not vibing with these characters at all, and I still really dislike the princess in this, and I still really dislike the female character in this. So yeah, there's not many people that are likeable in this, so there's that. Let's not dwell. Okay, so the next one is 3 stars, and that was The Tempest. I was going to do a vlog where I read these Shakespeare graphic novels, so I started with The Tempest, and I was going to do like, there was a Comedy of Errors, there was Macbeth, but I thought because we were being turned into like graphic novels that they were going to sort of modernise the language in it as well, but it wasn't. It was very much Shakespearean language, but in graphic novel form. And I was bored. It took me way longer than necessary to finish a graphic novel that was about 100 pages. It was ridiculous. Too long. So I just scrapped that vlog. Didn't happen. Deleted the clips. Just wasn't happening. The next 3 stars is Vampires, Hearts and Other Dead Things. That was by Margie Fuston. Now, I'll put a little picture up here. I went into this knowing that there was some talk about a parent that was very ill, that was terminally ill. It says it on the blurb, and it says it does warn you. And that's not a trigger for me, so I knew that going in, and that was fine. But I don't know what to say without giving it away. I just didn't like it. Talked about like vampires, because she wants, basically her and her dad are obsessed with vampires, and the main character and her dad, and they used to watch like all the vampire shows together. They always talk about what if vampires are real. A few years prior to where we start the book at, a vampire went on TV and came out as being like, you know, vampires exist, I'm a vampire, and then there was uproar, they went into hiding. Ever since then, her and her dad were saying, wouldn't it be great if we could go out and find ourselves a vampire? And basically, he gets too ill to do this, So she decides to go on this trip by herself. Her dad initially thinks that she's going away by herself to have a break because all she's been doing is looking after him. She hasn't come to terms with the fact that he's accepted that he's dying. And he sends her away just so she can get a break. But then she goes on this wild like vampire hunt thing, and I just feel like it should have either been a vampire story or like a heart-wrenching contemporary, a girl struggling to come to terms with her dad dying kind of thing. Mix of the fantastical with and like the mythological, what I'm going to call it, like the vampire myth, and mixing that with such a serious topic. And I get there's a moral to the story. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it didn't make sense in my brain, and I was struggling. Next, there was 3.5 stars. There was one called Love at First Bite. So this is by Anna E. Collins. This is a story of a woman who divorces her husband because he finds out that he's cheated. She finds out that he's cheated. It starts with her setting up a new life, trying to come to terms with the fact that she's trying to, she doesn't know what to do now and move on. And it sort of shows a bit of how he treated her really badly, and in hindsight she can see how he was quite manipulative and didn't really take her feelings into consideration. So there's no cheating on page. Just to throw that out there, but there is a cheating aspect to it because that's how this all starts. So basically, when I don't know, I can't remember the main characters' names. I'm so sorry. Another guy's name in this is Wyatt, and I don't know why I can remember that, but I can't remember her name. But anyway, is it Claire? Maybe it's wrong. Anyway, so initially what they wanted to do was when she was with her husband, she wanted to buy a house, then buy the plot of land next to it or across from it, so that she could have her own space. He bought the house and didn't, just said he was going to do that, but then didn't. So then there was this plot of land that was across from where he lives. So she decides that she's going to build something called the Spite House, which is very cheesy. I know, it's very cheesy. But she gets together with, I think it's a cousin and this lady that they meet, and they start building this Spite House, and things just get a bit out of control. She meets Wyatt, who is an architect in the company that she works for. So she's the designer and he's an architect, and he's like the grumpy one. She's, I won't say sunshine because she's not really sunshine, but he's a very grumpy, sort of like broody character. And I actually liked Wyatt, but he's a typical, he's judged for being very brash and blunt at work, and people talk about him behind his back because he's so very much like business. And then she sees another side to him, and I really liked the romance. That was fine. I just think it was just above okay. It was a fun quick read, and I read it for a vlog that I haven't edited yet and put out, but I did read it for a vlog, and it was okay. It was fun. The next 3.5 stars is Stuck on Brew by Wendy Dalrymple. This is a shorter book. I should have checked how long this was before I went into it, because we meet a woman who, the synopsis gave me very much like You've Got Mail vibes, and I was so down for this. You've Got Mail, I loved You've Got Mail. I could rewatch that time and time again and just bask in Meg Rec and Tom Hanks. Just their chemistry is brilliant, and I thought it might be similar to that. So there's a woman who owns a brewery, and it's not going well, and then a larger brewery opens up across the road, or reopens across the road, and it's about her trying to get her business to work, and you know, there's a connection between her and the guy that owns the brewery, or has taken over the brewery. And I just thought this would have been a perfect time to not do a rip-off of You've Got Mail, but do that whole thing. Do you know what I mean? It's a vibe, and it just didn't land. It was too short, and the backstory that makes me really get behind the main characters just wasn't there. We got hints of a backstory. We got the basics of like why she is where she is, why he is where he is, and it hinted at some things about his past that I really wanted to get into, because you could take it different ways as to what his past was, and there's something that's hinted, but then he does something that makes me think, then if that was his past, why has he done this? And it's, I can't say much more about that without spoiling it, but it was good. It was a quick fun read, and it was just something that I do want to pick up more when Dalrymple. I'm just gonna expect it going in and like double check the time and how long these books are. I don't know if all the books are that short, but it could have been a bit longer with more character development, which is not usually what I say. So that's strange for me. Next up, we have the 4 stars. So, the RomCom Agenda. I really, really liked this one. And the RomCom Agenda is by Erica Schindel. So this was another one that I did for that vlog. Again, main characters' names slip my mind. But there is a woman who, something bad has happened. So, like, there should still be trigger warnings on these books. I know that a lot more fantasy and some contemporary books put trigger warnings on there, but really there should be some content warnings on all books if there's anything discussed. So basically, this one and Vampires, Hearts and Other Dead Things both have cancer related to someone close to the main characters. There is a woman who has recently lost her foster mum to cancer, and she spent a lot of her time when her foster mum was dying and was ill. She was looking after her. She's basically been picking up odd jobs and working multiple jobs to save money to leave town again and start her life again. But she overhears a conversation between a lovesick guy who after 4 months proposes to his girlfriend, and you can hear in her voice that she's really not into it all that much. She just breaks up with him, and there's that. A couple months later, I think it's like 5 months later, she's working in one of her jobs, and a bunch of girls come in with this guy and are trying to turn him into the man that they think his ex will fall for, because they think that, although one thing I will say is his sister throughout this doesn't actually think there's anything wrong with him, but because he's so adamant he wants to get this girl back, she's then decided with her friends that he needs to change if he wants to get her back. So just throwing that out there, they don't think that he needs to change, but he's adamant that he wants her back. So they said, well, for her, if you want to get with her specifically, then this is the kind of guy that she would go for. They try and change the way he looks, his hair, just everything about him. They're trying to change everything. And one of them is like clothes, and they go into this shop, and this is where the main characters, the male and female, meet. And then she gets involved and dragged into this whole makeover thing, and then obviously it's a rom-com thing. What the whole point is they're trying to turn him into a guy from these romantic comedies. And one of the things that they get him to do is to watch all these fun romantic comedies to try and model himself partly on the male characters in these, the male main characters in these romantic comedies, so he can win the girl. And it is very cheesy, but it was just so much fun. And then obviously it goes from there. But this was the best out of the ones that I read. So 4.5 star, Lost Book of the White by Cassandra Clare. I really enjoyed this. There was just something missing in this to push it to that 5 star that I got in Red Scrolls of Magic that I didn't get in this. I once again loved Alec and Magnus's relationship. I liked the journey that went on. This isn't as light-hearted as Red Scrolls of Magic. There were times where I was kind of tearing up and everything was a bit tense, and I think I did mention this in the vlog when I was reading it. I'm well aware of when this is set, and that, you know, these characters are in this after this point, but I was very much concerned for both of them quite a few times. The amount of crap Magnus gets himself into. I mean, dude, maybe just take a break and just chill for a bit, because we don't need this. But I really did love these 2 books. We found out more about the Elder's Curses and what they are. I had no idea what they were going into this. Like, I had no idea what to expect, and give me more Malik any day of the week. I just realised I've been spending the whole of that section holding up Red Scrolls of Magic, not Lost Book of the White. So this is Lost Book of the White. So the next books are all 5 stars. First up, I do have a physical copy of this. I just haven't got it in this room. And that's The Crew by Sadia Esami. I actually listened to this initially on audiobook only, but I bought the physical copy because I loved this so much. So this follows a guy called Arcade who has a past. They all have a past, don't they? But he gets pulled into helping people. And he is basically a bounty hunter, and I don't really know, I don't want to say anything without, I don't want to spoil it, but we find a dog man, we've got what a character called Biter, we've got a giant toad that you can ride, got a woman demon, and a very serious guy who starts off with is very serious, who is trying to get this merry band of men together to kill somebody. That's all I'm going to say about Arcade. Is so funny. He's one of these people who comes across like they don't give a crap, but you know that there's a reason behind why they act like that. And chess kiss, so good, so funny, but not overly, not like too try hard with it. It's just naturally funny. Like, you've got Dog Man who is very much going into situations like, I'm gonna die. You know, do you have to do this? Because I'm gonna die. Like, we're all gonna get hurt. Like, I don't like this. And he does it anyway because he's found his people and he helps with people. But honestly, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Please. And yes, it's indie fantasy. Don't at me. Don't at me. So these are in no particular order. These 5 stars are just from the pile over there. So next up we have Gods and Monsters. Shelby Mahurin knows how to end a trilogy. I know a lot of people don't care for this, but Jesus. I was on the edge of my seat. I just needed to devour this whole thing. This was supposed to be a buddy read with Lindsay. Me and Lindsay have done buddy reads every month since like August before last. So almost 2 years we've been doing like a buddy read every month. And wow, it's been that long. Jesus. And this was just, I literally messaged him. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm so invested, I need to finish this. This starts with Serpent and Dove, if you don't already know. And it follows a girl called Lou, who is a witch, and a guy called Reed, who is a witch hunter. This is like a fantasy romance. You can see where we're going, but there's so much more to it. There's Coco, there's Ansel, there's people involved in this that you really grow to care about, and Shelby is not afraid to break your heart and make you cry. I've got I keep wanting to call it Scarlet. Is it Scarlet Veil? I don't know. I'll put up here if I can find a picture of it. But I've got that book which follows a character from this series, which I'm really, really excited about. Because there's a character that's introduced near the beginning, and we don't really see much of until they come back into it. I think it's near the end of book 2, beginning of book 3. And then they're very intriguing as a character. And I'm so looking forward to following their story and how that story progresses. There's a trope in it, or there's something that's mentioned that is kind of concerning. Like I said, not much triggers me, but there's certain tropes that I don't like, and I could really do without reading about, and this is one of them. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who read the synopsis. You've probably picked up on the fact that that could potentially be a trope. If you want to know, message me and I'll tell you what trope I think it might be. But I'm hoping that that doesn't ruin the book, because if it's anything like this, yes. Oh, I missed a 4-star. Are we surprised we're not? Heliotrop. That's what I've just finished today. This is a chunker. This is a standalone. I gave this 4 stars, and the only reason I gave this 4, not a 5, is because I feel like it could have been a lot shorter. I loved Telio, I loved Jessim, I loved Din Samara, I loved Kaspari. I really enjoyed following these. It's a fantasy, but it's also kind of a bit like a slice of life, I want to say. You're following these people as they are trying to... is it a slice of... It's not a slice of life. I don't know how to describe it, but it's not just all battles and, you know, there's a lot of things that are like underlying plot points that run throughout this book. But we do predominantly follow Jessim, Kaspari, Telio and Samara as they are trying to escape a situation. And it's just, there were times when I was getting a bit like it was lagging a bit. There's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of like, I can understand why they had to stay in certain places, and yes, there were certain fights that went on, but it wasn't like epic battles or anything. And when the fights did happen, it felt like they were over quite quickly, so a lot of the time we were just following them trying to build up to this big thing that was happening. It's called Heliotrop. So this word is significant to the story, and I really enjoyed that side of things, in the magic and discussing mages and all that kind of stuff, and it was really, really interesting. But I just feel like it could have been maybe even just a couple of 100 pages short, because it's like 750 pages or so, 760 pages. I feel like it could have been 150 pages shorter, and we could have still got the same message across and packed a punch the same way it did. It did pick up a lot near the end, and it did sort of like move quite fast near the end, but it was just those short bits in the middle that were just a bit laggy that took it down for me. But I will definitely read more from Palmer Pickering. I am definitely going to pick up more of her books. Thank you so much to Palmer for gifting me the audiobook. Next up we have Blue Exorcist 4 and 5. Obviously these are 5 stars. Are you going to expect anything more from it? No. If you want to know what Blue Exorcist is about, it's about a boy called Rin Nakamura who finds out he's the son of Satan. He has a twin brother, and they are totally opposite to each other, and it goes on from there. There are so many things that happen. Rin wants to become an exorcist so he could kill Satan, because something happens to Rin and his brother near the beginning of book 1, volume 1, and you know, it's trauma. But it's just the relationship between him and his brother, so funny but so good, and the found family vibes, and the just him trying to navigate being the son of Satan after not knowing anything about that kind of thing until this event happens. And I don't want to give anything away. If you've not read it or watched it, then please. Next up we have a Meg Rec. Are we surprised that we have a Meg Rec? There's a contemporary on here. No, we're not. And are you surprised to give it 5 stars? If you've watched any of my vlogs or any wrap-ups where I've said that this is a Meg Rec, you shouldn't be surprised. The Mysterious Side of Lady Scoundrels is so good. I've already got book 2 waiting to be read, and it's not a series, but it's like I'm gonna read them in the order that they were released. This book, it's whimsical. It's a fun romance. Follows a girl called Celia who is a pirate, and she meets this guy, Ned, who is supposed to kill her. And it's just a fun, frolic, fabulous, fantastical time. I recommend the audiobook for this. Highly, highly recommend the audiobook for this, and Crew, and Heliotrop. Not Eldest. Don't get the audiobook for Eldest. I loved the banter, the story, the romance, and there's a scene where it's being read in a really posh voice, but it's quite an intimate scene, and the expletives that she uses, it's funny. I could read this. I could reread this right now. Next up, we have Vicious and Vengeful. Boop, 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 boop. Both of these were 5 stars. V. Schwab smashes it out of the park again. Are we surprised? No, we're not. If you don't know what Vicious and Vengeful are, the Vicious series are supposed to be a trilogy, but we don't know when we're getting book 3. This follows Victor and Eli, who 10 years ago were friends, and now Victor's just getting out of prison, and we don't know what's happened. We know that something's happened between these two, but we don't know what. And there's like back and forward timeline stuff, and there's Eli's a prick, and we don't back Eli in any way, shape or form, but Victor's not a good guy either. And we meet Sydney, and we have Mitch, who is also a fab character. I think my favourite characters in this series are like Mitch and Sydney. Very much not Victor and Eli, but Victor, if I had to pick, is better than Eli. But there's things that happen in this, and I was just like, bitch, what? Next up, we have radio silence. Trigger warnings, content warnings again for this. There's depression, anxiety, mental and physical abuse of a parent, animal death, suicide, discussions around suicide. There's lots of content warnings for this. Please check it out before reading this. But once again, Alice Oseman knows what they're doing and knows how to make you immediately connect and feel for the characters, but then make you just fall in love with everything that they do. And finally, this is the penultimate book. The next one I read, are we surprised that I gave this 5 stars? We're not at all. So this is the second book of 5, I think, that is in the Songs of Chaos series. And this follows a boy called Holt and a dragon called Ash. And brief rundown, I think I've talked about this so many times, I feel like I'm boring people, but book 1 is Ascending, and in book 1 Holt finds out that Holt always wants to be a dragon rider, but he lives in a world where your surname is basically what you are, so his surname is Cook, and it always meant to be as a cook. But Holt wants more for himself. He comes across a choosing ceremony where the matriarch chooses what eggs they want for the order, but then he realises that when they say that they choose which eggs are part of the order, the ones that get rejected don't just get sent into the wild to be wild dragons, they get destroyed. And that is like a rude awakening for Ash. I keep wanting to call him Ash. So that's kind of a rude awakening for Holt. And he, accidentally acquires an egg and hatches Ash. And his defect is that he's blind. The bond that they developed in book 1 just grew in book 2. You can't find me characters that I will love more. Michael has a way of writing, and again, this is another Thickham's book, but he has a way of writing that's just like, I never got bored. And yes, it's a training book. This is basically, there's bits that follow Talia and other characters, and there's bits of that back and forth, but it is predominantly an Ash and Holt training situation and growing to be a champion in order to defeat the big bad. And the way that this is done, no point was I bored, no point was I like, just get to the point. I was fully invested in their training journey, and they have cooking in this, and the way that they try and build the strength of Ash and Holt through cooking, and it's just great. The Holt hasn't lost himself in the, he's gained magic and he's gained the strength and stuff from the bond with Ash, but he hasn't lost what he was originally supposed to be, so he still utilises his skills as a cook, which I just think is bloody brilliant. And I said to Michael, I messaged him after I read this, and I was like, at some point we need a recipe book from Holt, because some of his meals that he made, I mean, am I ever going to make venison? I don't know, but like, I just want a lamb stew made by Holt. Just saying. Anyway, that's enough of me rambling. You will see this coming up again, this author, in July, and I'm not sorry about it. You see why I want to do wrap-ups on a weekly basis? Because this is now like ridiculously long, like 50 minutes long, and I need to cut this down. Finally, we have the book that I read in 48 hours. 740 pages in 48 hours. This is We Break 'Em All by Thomas Howard Riley. And I'm going to read the synopsis to you, the tagline thing in the synopsis. And it says, a drug addict who hunts sorcerers, the most renowned swordsman no one has ever heard of, and a thieving magic-wielding woman hell-bent on revenge collide during a last-ditch effort to stop an insane superhuman serial killer from making himself a god. That is all I'm going to say, other than I like Aaron. I don't know if I should like him. I think he needs a lot of help, but one thing that Thomas did really well with this is that the magic in this is very technical. The way he tracks magic is very technical, and there could have just been a crap ton of exposition, and it could have just been like it could have been done in that way. But the way that he sort of weaves in the technical side of how this Aaron tracks magic is built in like a conversation with another person, or it's sort of explaining it as he's doing it when he's sort of trying to read a room and use his tools to read a room, and it's just the flow. And once again with this, the only thing that slowed me down is that I wasn't used to physically reading, and this writing is small. It is teensy, and that is the only thing that slowed me down, is that I need to take a break from my eyes. I tabbed this, which I wasn't expecting to do. I am going to reread this, and when I get some wax highlighters, I am going to start highlighting and write some more stuff in it. I feel like I will get so much more out of this on a reread that I'm just super excited to get into this. If anybody has any recommendations that are similar to any of the books here that I gave high ratings to, then please leave them down below. I am always happy to take more recommendations. If you like me and you want to see more of me, please like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you're here and you want to let me know you're here, but you don't have anything to say, please do a black heart, very much appreciated. And until next time, enjoy whatever you're reading, watching or doing, and I will see you all very soon.
Every time I fall in love, it seems to be at the wrong time.